Hey, what's going on, guys? We are returning to the enjoyment of the My Favorite LJN tournament. So it looks like we are on the 5th episode, round 4, part 5 of the My Favorite LJN tournament. And with the conclusion of today's episode, we will be halfway through round 3. So, you guys already know, man. Round 4 will only be 5 episodes, and round 5 will either be 2 or 3 episodes long. I might try and stretch out round 5 to about 3 episodes. Round 6... yeah, we'll see. I'm trying to think. So if round 5... So round 4 will be 5 episodes. Round 5 will be about 3 episodes. Round 6 will most likely just be about 1 episode. That with the semifinals. And round 7 will obviously just 1 episode. So round 6 and 7, more than likely, I will probably break those down into 1 episode each. In the past, I combined semifinals, finals into 1 episode. And those were 40-minute episodes. But I'm probably going to separate them, make them their own unique episode. So, I mean, at almost 80 episodes, does 1 extra episode really make a difference? It won't. So, not a whole lot of information to put out before, the tournament begins today. So, luckily, we'll just be able to dive right into the drawing of today's matchups and dive right into today's tournament matchup. So, all right, so guys, let's begin, shall we? First matchup, Outback Jack. And Outback Jack will square off against upgraded King Kong Bundy. Next matchup is going to feature Coco Red and White, and he will square off against Colonel Mustafa. Already 2 freaking awesome matchups. This is going to be a tough battle. Jim Neidhart Blue, and he will do battle against Freddie Blassie Blue and Red. And last battle, Stud Referee, and he will square off against Ric Flair. Most likely the Ric Flair Galoop 2-up. Alright, so let's go ahead, pull those figures, and we will begin shortly. Alright, so first matchup was Outback Jack versus King Kong Bundy, or the upgraded King Kong Bundy, and this right here is probably going to be the highlight of today's video, and this is a tough battle. I mean, I already know right off the bat, this is going to be a difficult selection. So, let's start with Outback Jack. So, kind of looking at no customs, talking about the original line of LJNs. When I'm kind of looking at my countdown, and I'm looking at the figures, I'm probably going to put Outback Jack probably at number 12. And King Kong Bundy, even though original King Kong Bundy may not have the best fighting pose in the world, right? Based on size and girth and weight that I always appreciate, I've always said that outside of Greg Valentine, the Bundy figure was always one of my most utilized figures, one of the most joyful figures. And that's why I probably, fighting pose be damned, I always put King Kong Bundy very high among my most coveted or most enjoyed LJN figures. So even original arms down Bundy, I said was probably a number 14, let's say. So a number 12 figure, and think of original Bundy is number 14. So 2 top 15 LJNs. I never know where I never know where Outback Jack ever ends up on my first two tournaments. So where are we at? We're in round 3 right now, right? And as I recall past tournaments, like I never have any recollection of getting the opportunity to talk about Outback Jack a lot in past tournaments. And that's a darn shame because, like I said, Outback Jack, a number 12 among all of the original LJN figures. I mean, there's over 70 original figures. I mean, we throw in all variants. I mean, you're probably hovering closer to like 80 original LJN figures. And we're talking a number 12 best figure. I mean, he probably rates even higher than that nowadays. I mean, like I said, if I were to kind of reshuffle the way I look at these figures, aesthetically, he is a very playable figure. One of the best play poses. He's like right there. He's probably like he basically is a Jim Duggan. And it's like I said, I gotta do some reshuffling because I can't put like Bret Hart at like number 13, and I don't know where I have Jim Duggan. I mean, I assume Jim Duggan is in the top 20, and let's say Jim Duggan's like number 17. Again, I don't remember my list. I don't remember my whole top 20 list, right? So I can't say Outback Jack is number 12, Jim Duggan hypothetically is 17, and Bret Hart, who I classify, is a pretty bad figure. You know, small uppercut punch only, and that's it at number 13. So you would think that they go back to back as basically being the exact same type of figure. So I really do have to go back at some point, do some kind of realignment, and do a brand new layout of all the LJNs and resituate the way that I classify the LJNs. Because I know my top 10 really isn't going to be my top 10 anymore. Top 20 really isn't going to be my top 20. So I've been talking about wanting to do 21 through 30, 31 through 40, etc. But no, I really got to start fresh. He may not, Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake, all those figures with like straight legs, they may not have that curve or the bended knees that I enjoy from like Kamala and Stud and Hogan, right? But he is a spectacular figure. One of the more enjoyable and fun figures. Fun, good grip to the figure, right? So he is just a very unique figure. I don't want to say unique, but just a fun. I really stopped classifying the elbow drop as being an attribute for a lot of action figures because almost any action figure can do an elbow drop. Ron Simmons Galoob is probably one of the best elbow drop action figures that you could ever find, and that is an absolutely horrendous action figure. But he does have that in spades. Awesome clothesline, good punching figure, a good I don't know what you call this, but a good overhead takedown, right? So this is a good technical a good utilized figure for technical use if you wanted to, and aesthetics, clothes wise, I mean it's got a good design to it, so I like it a lot. And because I don't really remember talking about this figure in past tournaments, he could have been like a one and done figure or maybe out after the second round. So making it to the third round is a nice run for this figure. And I've always said, this is really a figure that should go 4 or 5 rounds. But this upgraded King Kong Bundy, if it was simply Outback Jack against ordinary King Kong Bundy, I would probably say there is a chance that Outback Jack could potentially move on to round 4. Maybe. If, it was going up against original, maybe a 50-50 chance, possibly. If he was going against maybe the Mark Hackenberg custom repainted version, yeah, the chances probably go down a lot more because I really enjoy that custom repaint that's on that figure. But this particular custom, ever since I got this figure in, ever since I made that video that this potential King Kong Bundy could be the greatest LJN figure that's ever been made, that wasn't just a theoretical statement. I strongly believe that this is a strong possibility that this is the greatest, or it could be the greatest LJN figure ever made. Now, the argument will continue to be made throughout the end of this tournament. I will put this figure up against, say, Big Boss Man as a good example, because Big Boss Man has the clothing, has that eye-popping design, right, with all the color scheme, where it's just a straight jet black color scheme. So when I look at figures like Bundy and like Greg Valentine, right, and you look at just simply all black figures, right, when you look at like Andre the Giant as like all blue, that does hurt those figures. Now, if it's just a straight one detailed color, does it necessarily mean that they're not going to win just because of that one particular color? It doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to win, but it does hurt their chances. Putting the right pose on a figure jump starts their chances of winning a tournament like this tenfold. So you're taking literally one of the greatest figures that I absolutely love already, and you're putting one of my most perfect action figures ever in SD Jones, and you are combining two of my favorite figures, and you're putting them into one. How can I not choose the King Kong Bundy SD Jones combination to win this tournament? It is hard to lose Outback Jack here in the third round, but yes, I've got to go with Bundy to move on to the fourth round. Bundy is, after all, one of my 10. I'm going to make that a point, probably periodically throughout this tournament. I think he is, at the very least, a fifth rounder moving forward. Does that mean he's guaranteed to make it out of the next round? Not necessarily, but I think he is one of those guys who is a bona fide contender to unseat Bruiser Brody for the championship. So he is one of those guys I am looking forward to potentially seeing in the finals, or at the very least semifinals. Next matchup, we are going to see Coco and who is this? So, from the Raider Nation, Coco Beware taking on Colonel Mustafa. And we will start with Coco. And Coco Beware, as you guys know, January 2022, I was in Iraq. Probably the first three things I could ever remember buying from the Raider Nation. First item I ever bought was a mint on card Elias figure, and if that didn't complete my Mattel Retros, it was at least one of the last few figures I needed to complete my Mattel Retros mint on card collection. So that was something. And then I bought the black and gold Honky Tonk Man, and that figure did not, and it came with a guitar accessory, right? So, and it probably cost me like around $67, $70, $73, something like that. It wasn't expensive at all. To boot, I also very shortly thereafter also picked up this this Coco Beware figure. Now, mind you, in 2022, regular Honky Tonk Man or Coco Beware figures, original figures are probably selling for $80, $90, $100 on eBay. So to get these amazing custom figures for around $70 was, in my opinion, an absolute steal. And I still argue that not only are they my two favorite pieces from the Raider Nation, the two of my highlighted pieces, and there are reasons I keep going back to Justin's site on the Raider Nation, and why I always inquire, hey, are you getting any new customs in? Is Kenny coming out with any more custom figures that you're listing up on your site? So most recently, Justin, he did post a new figure of Hulk Hogan, and actually this weekend, I couldn't do it this past weekend because I posted a couple other videos from Grapplers and Gimmicks and from Rush Collectibles. Obviously, I want to have Tuesdays established for the Hasbro videos, and I want to put out 4 days aside for these tournament videos, and then the other 2 days I want to set aside for something else. So again, I set those 2 days aside for Grapplers and Gimmicks and for Rush Collectibles. So next week I'm going to put a couple days aside, and one of those days I'm going to put aside to review the new figures I got from the Raider Nation, and that's going to include Killer Khan and Hollywood Hogan, and they're pretty awesome pieces. Killer Khan, I don't know a whole lot about him. Not the most insanely incredible piece like this, but I mean, it's a new figure for the collection. Hulk Hogan, that was the figure I wanted. Justin asked me if I wanted Killer Khan. Send me a picture. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. The prices were great, so I'm like, you know what? Justin's always giving me awesome service. So I'm like, yeah, I definitely didn't want to pass up the opportunity to add a new figure to the collection. And like I said, this you always want to give business to people that have given you this amazing service in the past, and this stuff like this is why I keep going back to the same sellers over and over again. So, but Coco, in of himself, the figure I love. I love Coco Beware figures. It's just the wrestler himself, man. I am just not a fan of Coco Beware, the wrestler. As a kid, I probably loved the hell out of him, but as an adult, I don't know, man. I'm not a fan. In the 90s, during the height of the Gulf War, the Iron Sheik got a new gimmick as a Iraqi soldier, and he took on the role of Colonel Mustafa. Now, there is so many reasons why I have coveted this particular figure. First and foremost, the price was right. $20 for this. $20 for something that I might argue could potentially be the single greatest LJN figure ever made. It is an original LJN. I mean, it is a rubber figure. It's not like it's resin or anything. But the work that whoever customized this to actually, I don't know what it is that they use, but to actually build actual clothing on top of the figure, to actually create a shirt and pants, to create patches, to create a cord, to create the beret, the intricate details. Two figures stood out to me. Obviously, the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat figure, the Hasbro style dragon figure, and the Colonel Mustafa. When I got those two figures in, I looked at them. I'm like, man, I have to do a new LJN tournament because I think either one of these two figures could potentially unseat Bruiser Brody as my new favorite LJN. Now, ever since I got that new King Kong Bundy in, I'm like, yeah, you know what? 3 possibilities. Obviously, I've got new figures in, like Berserker could potentially win. I still think Zeus is a strong possibility. So, I've got new figures in, of course, since then. And I still think one of the originals could potentially win. Original Series 1 Hogan is finally getting a much longer look because of a fan of Hogan and that Series 1 figure in particular. That's a possibility. I think Big Boss Man might have his best shot yet. So you are getting these opportunities for figures that could actually have a better opportunity to actually to win this tournament. Or Bruiser Brody might win his third straight tournament. I don't know. It might be extremely difficult for me to pass on a guy that's already won 2 tournaments and to say, you know what, he's won twice. It would be difficult for me to put anybody over a figure that I've coveted for so long. So, but I look at this figure and I'm like, you know what? If I look at a figure like this, and let's say this figure goes up against someone like a King Kong Bundy we just looked at. King Kong Bundy has a pose where I've said something like Iron Sheik has one of my least favorite poses. It would be a darn shame if a Colonel Mustafa in this tournament loses a matchup or ends up in the finals and is like a final 2 going up against Bruiser Brody as an example and loses that matchup. Not because it's not a superior figure, but simply because he doesn't have a better fighting pose. And that literally is the only thing holding him back. Because this is a fantastic figure. I am loving this figure. I literally think that this could be the greatest figure ever. Now, yes, I could say that about 1,000 different figures, but this is so insanely good. And I love talking about this figure all the time because every time I look at Colonel Mustafa and I always mention it, actually working in Iraq, both as a soldier and as a contractor, but in particularly as a soldier, whenever I, like go to the gates and pick up the local workers and you'd have them in the truck or whatnot, or in the SUV, what have you, and you'd have on the local radio station. And like you're in Iraq, you think the local radio station is Iraq music, so you'd be sitting there and you'd be blasting the music, you'd be jamming to the local Iraqi music, and the local Iraqis, they're like they turn off the music, they'd be all pissed off at you, like, like they don't want to listen to that crap. Like, you'd be able to sit there looking at them all confused, like, well, what the hell? And then find out that it's not Iraq music that you were listening to. It was Iranian music, and so knowing that the Iron Sheik was from Iran and Iraq, got to put that little extra emphasis on the names. They freaking, at least back then, they freaking despised each other. So having an Iranian play an Iraqi soldier was so freaking awesome. But yeah, this figure really is awesome. And Coco Beware, he might have the funky arm hand positioning. It is still an enjoyable, playful figure, but like I said, Coco, he could go extremely far in this tournament, this particular figure. I'm talking 4 or 5 rounds potential. But this is a bona fide candidate to win this tournament. Colonel Mustafa, there is very few figures, if any, that is actually going to have the potential to eliminate him. And like I said, if Bruiser Brody wins this tournament, maybe Bruiser Brody can win or defeat him. Maybe Big Boss Man wins this tournament and could defeat him. I don't know. But I've been thinking about it the last couple rounds, and this is one of my favorites. Now, I could think 2 rounds ago that, hey, I think Colonel Mustafa's going to win. And then in the next round, I'm like, you know what? No, what? I think Zeus is going to win. Then the very next round, I'm like, nah, you know what? I'm really feeling Bruce Brody. I really think it's hard to choose somebody else over him. And then the next round, I'm like, you know what? I'm back to Big Boss Man again. So it's like, it really changes round to round. Next matchup is Jim. Stupid tag, stop moving. Jim Neidhart Blue versus Freddie Blassie. So at 25 plus minutes, this isn't really something that you're gonna have to go back and forth on. This is a relatively easy decision. So Freddie Blassie, when I was doing my little rumbles, kind of getting a feel for the figure, I've said it before. I enjoyed the Freddie Blassie figure, but because you're kind of looking at it from a realistic standpoint, you're still treating him like a 70-year-old man. So you weren't really using him as an enforcer or someone that was going to be in that rumble long term. But he's essentially a SD Jones type play pose, right? So it is something that you really enjoy utilizing as a playable wrestling action figure if you wanted to. So when I did my favorite LJN manager tournament, of course I kind of gravitated towards Freddie Blassie and thought he was going to be one of those figures that was going to win, if not the original, potentially the one of his customs. But Freddie Blassie, as a manager, great pose, one of my favorites. Is he going to defeat one of LJN's top 10 figures? Highly unlikely. Jim Neidhart's had like 20,000 LJNs in this tournament. And the one LJN that looks like this, but with the black strap down the leg, I don't know if that figure is still in this tournament. I don't think so. But seeing any Jim Neidhart in round 4, it's a nice run for a Jim Neidhart figure. Like I said, there's been so many Jim Neidharts. You might find one in round 4. You might find 4 of them in round 4. It's all because of how many Jim Neidharts there were in this tournament. It's all based on luck of the draw and who he faces at one point. It's a very easy selection here. It's not something that you're going to go back and forth on. Like I said, a very quick and easy matchup right there. Last matchup is going to feature Ric Flair going up against Big John Studd. So, one of my first figures that I ever painted. Now, it is a Robert Jackson figure, of course, but I like to take a little responsibility for it myself. So the Big John Studd figure, obviously, it was pretty beat up when I first got the figure, and yeah, I'm thinking I might take some of these figures off the stands because I think they might be cutting into the paint. Maybe, yeah. I'm thinking those stands might work best for like original figures, but like if you've got customs, sometimes you got to be careful which customs you utilize on the stands because they're metal and they dig into the paint. So like when I first started painting my figure, like I did the black pants, black boots. It came out really nice, but then I tried doing the shirt. I'm like, all you're doing is painting the chest, and it looks shitty as hell. I'm like, man, and it was all sticky, and I screwed the hell out of it. I couldn't figure out how people make straight lines and stuff with the referee shirt. I'm like, I got to do something. I ended up like kind of use like a little stencil. So I kind of like use like the sheet of paper, and I kind of made these little straight lines on the paper and kind of cut them out a little bit. So I kind of laid the paper on the figure. So I was using the paper kind of like as a stencil to make the black lines and whatnot. But it just did not come out well at all. And of course I had to go run into Rob. Hey man, please, for the love of God, fix this atrocity. As you see, he did a remarkable job. Changed the boots back to the multicolor, and I think this looks better. I like dual colors, so changing the black back to red, I think it looks better. I only made it all black because it was easier for me to paint everything one color, because you know how hard it is for me to paint. Even when I try like separating the white and the black here, yeah, I kind of messed it up. And when you kind of look at this, it looks like it's fluid. It looks like it's been like it's a natural tone and everything. When I tried painting the figure, I can't even explain how horrid it looked. And I tried Googling this stuff, man. Like the acrylic paints that I use, like you go to these little Hobby Lobby or whatever to use, and you buy like these big expensive boxes. Like we buy like these big boxes of like 100 count of like acrylic paints and stuff. You fancy brushes and paint thinners and paint remover and stuff, all this stuff. So like I went all out on these fancy paints and brushes and stuff to kind of like paint these really beat up figures to try and learn how to do stuff. Now I'm not thinking I'm going to be going out and doing like anything like really nice, like fancy like this, right? But like I wanted to do like the bare minimum. I'm talking about like taking a really beat up figure destroyed and kind of making like black pants, maybe like a white shirt or something. Like something very easy and simple. And just something I could put on my shelf for myself and be like, hey, yeah, I painted that. Yay me. But you guys know, man, Big John Studd, one of my absolute favorite figures. And getting not just a Big John Studd figure in, but something different than from the everyday white pants and stars. Getting a referee Big John Studd in, awesome. Yes, I do got the other Big John Studd, but that Studd I think is the one that they use the Hillbilly Jim legs. So they kind of like remove the bottom, put them on Hillbilly Jim's bottom. I'm like, I like that figure a lot, and they change out the hands as well. I like that figure a lot. I know that figure is going to go far in this tournament, but I already know that figure will not beat the ones with the regular Series 1 legs. So now if it comes down to original versus the referee, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to be going if that happens. But I could make things easier on myself and just put Ric Flair forward. Now, this is a Galoob tournament, or excuse me, a Galoob tournament. This is a LJN tournament after all. So, whenever I look at the Galoob 2-ups, I could say, you know what? They're essentially Galoob figures, right? So, I could just simply look at them as Galoob figures and not think of them as LJNs and kind of just disperse them and remove them from the tournament and don't even consider them LJNs. Yeah, they're 8 inches. They're rubber. They are built up to LJN style, right? They are LJNs. But the nostalgia, the memories that I have are based on your little 4-inch hard plastic Galoob figures. And yes, Ric Flair was a very utilized figure for play during childhood. So based on those memories and its usage, I have those memories. I didn't have Big John Studd from childhood. Having 2 Big John Studs already in this tournament, I don't need a third. I could push Ric Flair forward and potentially have him even, not even in the 4th round, but maybe even in the 5th round. But that's absolutely insane. Ric Flair is a good figure. It's just not a great figure. I've always said Ric Flair Galoob is roughly a average to below average Galoob figure. And in a tournament like this, yeah, it's a 3rd or 4th round figure. It's a very nice run for a figure like this. Ric Flair would never win this tournament. And like I said, man, it doesn't matter if you're looking at Big John Studd original or if you're looking at his referee figure. I kind of feel like one of the studs should, maybe not guaranteed, but should probably end up in the semifinals, because that's where he always ends up. But again, you're going from like 130 figures in the first tournament, 200 or so in the second tournament. So yeah, it's easy to say, yeah, that he's going to end up in the semifinals. But now with 320 figures in this 3rd tournament, does that still happen again? I don't know. It's hard. But Big John Studd is going to defeat Ric Flair to move on to round 4. Well, guys, that does conclude round 3, part 5. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye, everybody.